Welcome to Blender. In this video, we are going to set up lighting for baking for Second Life. We're going to be using regular Blender lights. We're going to make objects lights and use HDRs as lights. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and go to Preferences, to Add-ons, and we're going to turn on Extra Lights just to give us some more options. So just type in Extra, and you can turn on Extra Lights if you haven't already. And may as well go ahead and turn those two on because they're right there and I've turned them on earlier. So once you have your extra lights, if you hit Shift A, your normal lights are just to point the sun, the spot, and the area. The extra lights actually gives you natural lights like candles, moonlight, direct sun, incandescent lights, and just lots of stuff. We're also going to use Easy HDRI add-on, and to get it, we're going to go to the internet and type in Easy HDRI add-on for Blender, and we'll go down to GitHub. Yeah, we'll do the GitHub one. So click the GitHub, and once that's open, you can hit the little drop down here and download the zip. And once that's downloaded, you can close that, and we're gonna go ahead and open, not that, open the File Explorer, go to Downloads, and just drag that HDRI out and drop it. And then if you've watched my earlier videos, I have an add-on folder. I'm just going to drag that into the add-on folder and drop it in there. And then we'll go back to Blender, back to Edit, Preferences, and go ahead and click that X for the extra, and we're going to type, oh, no, we're not going to type. We're going to click this Easy, or Install, and go to our add-ons folder, and just install add-on zip, then type HDI, and you can turn on the 3D view Easy HDI or HDRI, and then click down here and save preferences, and you can close that. So we've got all that installed, and I'm just gonna go through normal basic lighting for Second Life. So the first thing I want to do is add a plane. So go to Mesh, Plane, just add one, and then scale it up. Lighting in Blender, when you're using cycles especially, the lighting bounces off everything that's in the scene. So I've got this floor here, so my lighting will bounce off of it. To see the lighting, you actually need to go to the render options up here. So click your render and it'll turn on the lights. Go over to render properties, and if you're not in cycles already, go ahead and change that from Eevee to cycles and the GPU compute. That'll give you your shadows. Your scene probably started with a point light. I have one set up in my beginner file as an area light, but let me delete it. So you start with a point light, and if you have a point light, it's probably sitting up here somewhere. If you want to, you can go over, you can select the light and go over here, and you can just change that to an area light. So we can scale it up and then position it somewhere. So I'm gonna hit Alt G to place it back down here, and Alt R to change the rotation, and then just GZ and move it up. And I'm gonna scale it up a little bigger. And I'm just gonna throw the power. So make sure you're on your light selected there, and throw the power to like 2000. Okay, so the bigger the light, the more area it gives, and it also softens the shadows. So if you go closer, you can brighten it up a little bit, and my shadow is nice and soft. If I move my light over on the x-axis a little bit, I can grab this point and just aim it at the light, or aim it at the object, grab the little yellow and aim it at the object, and that'll cast a shadow that way. I can scale it up or down. The smaller the light, the sharper the shadow gets. Same with the brightness. If you crank the brightness up, you can change the influence of that shadow. So if I make this light bigger now by scaling it, well, that's smaller. So if it's smaller, it gets real sharp, and if it's bigger, it gets softer and softer. So that's how you control what your shadow looks like. So this is how I typically light things. Um, I also sometimes, like let's say I made a lamp. So I'm going to hit Shift A, Mesh, and I'm going to use a UV sphere. GZ, move it up, scale it down a little bit. Let's say I made a lamp and it's got a little light bulb. Um, you can take a point light and add a point light here. I'll move it up and I'll hide this. I can take that point light and imitate the, let me shut this. Let me kill that one. Oops. So I can use this point light to emulate an actual light bulb on that object and get myself a glow like there's an actual light bulb sitting there. Or I can delete this and turn my sphere back on, give my sphere a material, and then, so I went down to the properties tab here. I'm going kind of quick, sorry. Go to materials property and click new on with your sphere selected. And then you can scroll down and there's an emission. If you turn the emission to white, it turns it into a light. And then you can change the emission strength. Let me drag this out. So there's an emission strength, and you can turn the strength up or turn it down. And you can actually make an object a light. And if you want, you can click your emission color here. Instead of it being completely white, you can make it red or green. And you can light your scene with objects like that. Now, you can change regular lights the same way I changed this. So let me add another light here. So if I add another point light and move it up here, and we'll turn the brightness up on it. It also has a color, so you could change this to like a color also. You don't have to make a prim to do that color thing. You can just change the color of the lighting. And then you can change the strength of the light. So that's another way to do it. Our third way to light a scene is, now mind you, when I'm doing this, I'm lighting stuff for Second Life. If you want to create a realistic image and stuff, you can put a sun and multiple lights to change things, and I'll show you some of that later. But you use 3-point lighting and stuff to do like photorealism and stuff. But we don't really need it in Second Life because we want the whole object to be kind of the same light all the way around and get a good shadows and stuff. So I just use a big area light to flood the scene. You guys seen me do it before. But you can also use Easy HDRI, and you'll need some HDRIs in a folder, and I have a link on my Discord to my HDR file, and you can download that. Um, so in my Discord, under helpful videos and links, my HDR file is right here to my Google Drive. You can just go download that. So for the Easy HDRI, you hit your N button to bring up your N panel and go to Easy HDRI, which is the add-on we loaded. And then you can click up here and find yourself your HDRI file. And mine is here and here. So I have all these HDRIs in this file, and that's the one that's on my Google Drive, so you can just download it. So once you open that file, you can click accept, and it loads them all into here, and they're all there. So I could just pick one, let's say this one, and then create world nodes, and it lights the scene for us. And it's super simple. It gives you great lighting. You can do all kind of stuff with it. So with the panel open, you can also change the sky strength. So this is how you can make it darker or lighter. I don't really mess with the sun strength, but some HDRIs have other stuff like gamma and everything else. Yeah, down here there's gamma and saturation, and you can do some pretty neat stuff with the gamma and saturation. So just play with the settings and get the lighting you want to get your object looking good. So you can see the settings of these HDRIs, if you go to the shading tab, and right here there's object. Well, that's your object materials. But if you hit the drop down, you have a world. This is the node setup for the HDRI itself. And you can mess with these settings in here and stuff and completely break it if you want, or or just do other stuff like you can rotate the scene around and stuff. Most of these settings are in your um, Easy HDRI thing though, so there's a rotation, and yeah, you can just play with those settings, or you can come here and play with them. But don't forget to change yourself back to object because you'll be lost and not know where your materials went. So speaking of materials, if we have a material on the box and we're using metallic, the metallic will actually reflect the HDRI you have. So if you're doing like silver, this is chrome, and it's reflecting the HDRI that's in the scene. You can turn up your roughness to blur it out, or pick one that's not so green. Like maybe we choose like this one. Oh, I'm not on the right thing there. There we go. I think I've messed with the gamma. Reset this. There we go. So let me change this back to take the roughness back down. So it'll reflect the scene like pretty much like a mirror. But if you turn the roughness up, you can scuff it up enough to where it's just a little bit of a scene. And it's hard to get rid of that. So if you're making metal, this is kind of what you're going to get. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you did, and I will see you in the next one.